Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Excellent Decisions podcast. This is Robert MacPhee, your host, and this is our wisdom series that we've been doing for the past couple of weeks with the same intention as the normal podcast to help you make more excellent decisions, more decisions based on your vision, your values, your value, rather than all the stress and pressure that we're faced with. But given that the stress and pressure that we're faced with has been ramped up significantly, we've been doing this wisdom series as a way for me to be able to share some of the amazing people in my network, some of the teachers, mentors, partners, collaborators that I've been so blessed to spend time with and learn from over the past 20 plus years, share some of their wisdom with you to help us all cope and deal effectively with this unique and truly historical time that we're faced with. So today I have my dear friend, and I don't say that lightly, that's like friend with capital F, Teresa Huggins, who I first met through the work that we were both doing to support Jack Canfield, and actually first met as students with Jack's work, right? Yeah.
We did.
I think it's fair to say that we both felt like we had gotten so much benefit from Jack's work that we made a commitment to support that work, and that had us working together for many years in some really amazing environments to do that. And Teresa is, she's the author of a book called Pausing Long Enough to Notice. She's the developer of an amazing youth program called Leaders for Life, which has created amazing results for young people for more years than I'm aware of. I don't have it on my little card here. How long has Leaders for Life been around?
15 years.
15 years. 15
Yeah.
years. So lots of amazing stories of making a profound difference on people's lives. And she's also been on her own super fun medical journey over the past couple of years too. And I think brings some really great insights to this whole conversation about what we're facing right now from that point of view as well. So Teresa, welcome. Thank you so much for being willing to take the time. We're fully bi-coastal here. Teresa's in New York, I'm in California, so we've got the whole country covered from end to end.
That's right. Well, it's exciting to be here, and the sun has set here in New York. So I'm in upstate New York, so we're not right in New York City where there's all the activity right now, but we are thinking of our downstaters.
Yeah, it's definitely been one of the crazier places. So you're kind of close to that, and obviously you're paying attention to what's going on. I've been starting most of these conversations just by asking, kind of what's your overall view? Like, what are you seeing? What's your perspective on what's going on with the virus and the changes that it's creating?
Yeah. The first thing I went through was sadness, to be honest, because today I would have been in Lake Tahoe, where last week I would have been in Hilton Head, a couple of weeks in Florida. So going through all the emotions, whatever it is, having gratitude for the people that, I can't even imagine being the hotel and airline and resort people on the other end of the phone when people were rebooking and canceling and all of that. So I allowed myself to feel all the feelings, but not stay in the feelings. So whatever is showing up for you, acknowledge it and pause and notice it and say, what is it? Am I agitated? Am I anxious? Anxiety is when we have a desire for something different than currently we perceive it as it is right now. And right now, to be honest, we don't know what things are changing. I am on a healing journey, and I drove about 4 hours to go to Boston, and I was probably an hour from Boston Hospital, and they called and said, I know you just called at 10 in the morning and we said come, but now the laws have changed and you can't come. And so you turn around and go back. So it's being flexible and accommodating in the journey. I think the virus is a time for us to really activate that inner calm. And I like to believe that the calmer we are and the more connected to our purpose, the virus will disappear. I don't have control over the virus in the sense of what it's doing, but I can certainly imagine it the way I'd like it to be. And that will bring peace versus the fear part.
Well, we might kind of come back to this question over and over again, but you said something about activating the inner calm, and I can almost hear people listening screaming in my ear as if they were like on the chat, or somehow had some sort of microphone in my ear saying, "How do I do that? How do I do that?" So
That's right.
and I think we can do this as we go through the conversation, and I don't think anyone would argue with the idea of activating the calm, but just so people know, like when I first offered to take a leadership role in Jack's organization, I agreed to take on that role, but only if I had Teresa working with me, and she has an ability to do things and help people with things like activating the calm. That's unlike anything I know. So I do want to pause and get your feedback on, like, for the lay person, if you will, and for me, because I'm sitting here taking notes, like what can I do, in terms of like practices to activate the calm?
Sure. So before I start my day, I do something to ground my energy. And it might be something as simple as, am I feeling my feet on the floor? And when we're in a stress mode, we're not. We're just going and we're moving, and our body's activating pain, tension, unsettled, shortness of with our loved ones. They say something and we're angry or frustrated with them. So connecting to things when you're not calm, noticing things in nature. Like we had a snowstorm last week. It's supposed to be spring. And so, and my husband's working at home, and so am I. And so I said, I want to go out at lunch and build a snowman. And he said, what? I said, come build a snow. I don't think we built a snowman. Our kids are in their 20s, probably since they were little. And it was fascinating. And we did that. And I was imagining the joy. So instead of being frustrated by all the cancellations and how I was supposed to be at a beach that day, that came up. But then in the joy and the calm, I shifted it. Throughout the day, chunk your day into different parts. Instead of thinking you can get everything done as if you were at your workplace, honor that it might come in sections, especially if you would have children or teenagers around, to understand that the expectations will be different, and to divide it into different parts of the day and look at what can I achieve from 9 to noon and take a break. I would stand up every hour. I would stretch. I would do some kind of yoga or qigong moves that you can find online. There's a lot of beautiful people offering free classes, or not even take a class, just take 3 breaths and allow the noticing your body and allow it to flow through you are some of the things I do during the day. And for everyone listening, I felt all the emotions. I mean, most of the time I'm like, okay, I'm taking too much energy that I'm feeling outside. I don't watch as much of the news as some other people. I pay attention to the good news that's happening. I imagine our world awakening to a new way of being. Like, think about it. The people that, for the most part, many people didn't honor. I'm grateful that the man picked up my garbage. Like they're really still out there. The person at the grocery store that's taking our money or our credit cards, and the uncertainty, like I really am valuing more than I probably did before.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah. And nothing you said was difficult or required, moving to India and living in a cave and learning some sort of, deep meditation practice that requires the mantra be spoken at a certain volume. Is all like simple stuff. And people should rewind and just listen and write those things down, because my favorite is a snowman. I live in California. I won't be able to do that one, but it's such a beautiful example of, while you're building the snowman, you won't be watching the news. You won't be in that state of worry or concern or whatever. Give yourself that opportunity to make a snowman, whatever that looks like. I love that. So I think it's also similar. One of the other questions I wanted to ask you, your book, which I mentioned in the introduction, pausing long enough to notice. And I was kind of joking before we hit record, like, did you ever think that book title would be so relevant as it is right now, as all of us are pausing long enough to notice some of those things you talked about the garbage being picked up, and
Right.
the people who are, help serving us at the grocery store or whatever it might be. Can you talk a little bit about that concept of pausing? Because I do think it's something that's so valuable at this particular time.
And what's interesting is it was without the virus that was happening around the world, like I'm doing a second edition on that book to really anchor down that what the stories are all about. They're just short stories that literally, when I paused from writing something else, I noticed I stopped running the fast pace. And the opening of the book talks about these trees that I saw on a vacation in Virginia. And I came back with a picture and asked a horticulturalist, and I said, could I plant these? Like, will these really work? And he just started laughing. And he said, Teresa, they're all over town in the spring. I never noticed them because I was going from point A to B. My kids were little, get to work, get to school, get ready. And I think this time is a way for us to reconnect to the simpler ways of being, noticing the buds that come on the tree, really the breath that we have, the food that's available to us. And we might have cravings right now. Like, you might want a certain food. I'll just go down to the store and get it. And then all of a sudden you realize you're really not supposed to be going down the store to get it. So it's the concept of pausing long enough to notice is being in the present moment, looking around your environment. One day I took a minute and I looked in my office, and I have gifts that were given to me from different people in my life. And I actually paused and I thought, I remember that moment when they handed me that object, instead of just being in a place and not even noticing it. So it's slowing down from the inside out.
Well, and it is such an opportunity right now to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And to some degree, we're kind of forced to, but not really, right? I mean, there's plenty of people who aren't slowing down,
No.
even though there's an opportunity, a huge opportunity right in front of us to be
Mm-hmm.
able to do that.
It's redesigning. It's looking at what I find is what I'm missing right now is probably what I long for the most. So something that is frustrating you or aggravating you are probably things that you value. So take some time to write that, to say, what is this irritation? And on the flip side of that, what do I value that I don't have right now? So my adult children, like yours, Robert, don't live with us right now. And I want to find a way to do more speaking engagements in the places that they live so I can see them more, because I don't have that opportunity right now. And looking at, we all have the same 24 hours. Now, I grew up with a grandma born in 1880, my mom born in 1922. So I have those roots. I got those good Irish roots of potato famine, right? They came here. And as a child, I heard about that hardship. Have opportunity to how we have a relationship with this experience. And I am aware, like, there are financial ramifications. There are things that are going to happen. But I ask myself, can I do anything about it today? And if it's a no, then that gets put aside. And I focus on, what can I achieve? How can I spread gratitude? How can I be more present? And then new ideas come, creativity. People are thinking of solutions, repurposing their companies. There's a lot of good things that can happen even in the pain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'm guessing you're experiencing some of the same things I am with the people around you in your life. People ask me, like, well, what, you can't travel, you can't work. Like, what are you doing? And I've kind of been joking, but I'm partially serious, that I feel like my job for the last several weeks has been to help people calm down. And you're kind of rephrasing that, and it's kind of the same, but a little bit different. Slow down. I think part of calming down seems to be to slow down, and this idea of pausing seems to take it all the way, like literally pause. Like if your life was going that fast, if you were listening to something on the radio, it was going that fast, you'd hit the stop button, or you'd hit the pause button and say, whoa, before we figure out what we're going to do next, we gotta just pause. And it is so important. It's such a good reminder. So have you been having that experience where you feel like part of your job, part of your role is to help people kind of calm down and stay grounded, stay centered?
Yeah. Yes. To stay in what we know is true, which doesn't necessarily mean what you see on the news, because you could go to different stations and have different stories. But what do we know is true right now, for today, for this week, for next week, instead of jumping ahead to the stories of all of the things that are going to happen. And for me, that happened 4 years ago, and I have a diagnosis named cancer. And the same thing, when it came back like that, I was like, wait a minute, it's not on my vision board. I don't have that I don't have time. I don't really have time for this. And I remember a doctor saying, you need to put your life on hold. And of course, the way I operate, I had to redefine that and send her a nice letter what my definition of life on hold was, and which wasn't hers, but it was really that idea of someone else was making my decisions, which I think a lot of people today are feeling. Somebody else is making our decisions. The government, the scientists, the doctors, the economic system, the companies. And so it's important during this time of challenge to understand we have the choice and we have the power, even when it feels powerless. So what do I have the choice over today? What can I control? For me, I went through, I'm editing some books and finishing some products, and I staying focused. Now, sometimes it's just for an hour, and I might just do it for an hour, and then I'll do some stretches, and then I'll go back to it. Because if your mind starts racing and your mind starts wondering, you could detach, like your mind and your body detach. And the healthiest immune system are when you're grounded in your essence, and you're present in the moment, and then your body can stay healthier.
Yeah, and it's such a good reminder about those choices are made in the present moment. Like what we can do, we decide that right now. And one of the things I'm noticing, and I'm curious kind of what your advice is to people for handling this, is as we look forward, there's the present moment where we're at now, and there's all the stories that led up to this. And again, everyone's got their own version of the story. But the part I'm finding most interesting on some level is when we look ahead. Because as we look forward, there's clearly some uncertainty, and the further we look ahead, the more uncertainty there is. Things are going to be different. And like, what's your advice to people about kind of how to handle that? Like how to approach that, because the truth is, like, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, we had a pretty good idea what the world was going to look like, a few months ahead of time. It was going to look pretty much like the way it is now. But now, like, I'm looking ahead 3 or 4 months. I'm trying to say curious, but the truth is, I really feel confident that it's not going to be the same. It's going to be different.
Right. Exactly. It is. And so it's a good time to reevaluate as a family, as a company, as employees, to decide how it's going to be different and what you can influence. So for example, I have some events that are in August. So do I really market them? Do they happen? Do I wait? Unfortunately, we're not doing a team program this summer because that is unpredictable to be able to have people come together. It fueled me more to want to finish the manuals to teach other people about the program. So take your pain and say, what can it be? How can I expand? How can we influence? I find that when I'm connected to something that creates joy for me, that's a common factor, like riding my bike, yoga, writing gratitude notes, walking my dog, then I feel more grounded in the now, and I feel better about the future. Like, what do I know is real? Like, I know certain things can happen in my home as best I can. The pieces about the business. So think of all the things that might be challenging and might be a disrupt. And then think about what are ways that I can create something new and better, even when I don't know what it looks like. Like you and I are speakers, and are we going to be traveling in 2 months and going on planes and having clients? I think it might look a little different. I'm not sure. So what can I do right now in my home that will help me be better prepared for that? It also might be people's hearts are opening. So I always teach about heart-centered leadership. I'm kind of excited about the opportunity for people to reawaken that and think about doing business in a little different way. I think about all the young people who are a little uncertain about it, and what does it look like? I have a lot of feeling for seniors in high school and seniors in college, because I was at a college working actually the day before all the changes happened, and they were grieving. These seniors, well, will I be back? Will I have senior week? Will I have my recital? And so I think as a society, we really want to be aware with young people that they are also going through a grieving process, but they don't have the life experiences like adults. And so what happens is, if you have children at home or college students that are back, or teenagers, understand their behaviors that might look like disrespect is probably actually loss. And they don't know that, and they don't know what to express it, how to express that and feel that. But the more we can have compassion for them and family conversations, I think that helps a lot.
Yeah. Well, and that was one of the other questions I wanted to ask you, because you do have so much experience working with young people. And I think you bring up a really good kind of subsection of that group, which is people who are completing high school or completing college. And that's usually such a celebration and such an opportunity for, rejoicing and gatherings and all that. And nope, not this year, not happening. And it's I want to say unfair, but I think about my son Duncan. When he was younger, he would always complain it wasn't fair. And it was like, well, who said it was going to be fair, right? But it is tough on them. It is tough on them. And anything else you would want to add to, not only for that specific group of young people, but just young people in general, for those of us who are committed to supporting younger people as best we can? What are some of the things that we can do to help them through this time? And even, I don't know, you want to get into even much younger. I was speaking with a friend who has a daughter who I think is only 7 years old or something, and is having a really hard time understanding all this. So whatever insights you have about the whole range of young people and how we can really support them.
Sure. There's things online that I would look at by age, because it's very different. How a primary, early elementary student will process it a lot different. In younger children, you might see more fear and uncertainty. My main recommendation is not to have the news on running in the house all day while they're playing or doing homework, because they're picking it all up consciously and unconsciously. It'll increase nightmares, uncertainty. If mom and dad are talking about things that are, the bills or how we're going to pay for things, young people take that at all ages and they interpret it and feel they're somehow responsible. And so you might see some things with eating issues with young people. For middle school, high school, you're going to see more irritation. Why do I have to do another worksheet? What does this matter? Are we going back to school? Let them express, I would have a family conversation about what the parameters are. It's important for them to get the energy out, especially young people that do a lot of sports, that are used to running and exercising an hour or two a day, and they don't have that. And when they're without their friends are really important in middle school and high school. And again, that's a loss. So we as adults are missing our colleagues and friends. Well, really, it's amped up for young people. So if there some things you might see, they're disrespectful in your opinion, is actually they're expressing their fear and their loss. And yet you still have to have ground rules. So I would create a new set of ground rules for family guidelines. I would be present to listen to them. I'd be honest with them at a level that is okay. If you get angry at them or frustrated, just when you calm down, let them know, hey, I don't know what's happening, to be honest. And I, as a mom, I'm frustrated and I'm sorry I took it out on you. Instead of not saying anything like that. I think for teens, maybe they sleep in and then start. Every school is different. Some schools are operating like you had class at 8 a.m., you got to be on Zoom at 8 a.m. Some have stacks and stacks of papers and no Zoom, and it's hard. And how do they learn? And math is different than we learned, and science. It's that juggling and that turbulence. So reach out to people, reach out to your schools if there's a counselor there to help, or other people. I know in our county, I'm volunteering. I'll be on a counseling hotline for a few hours once a week, and they're doing that. So there's resources out there, but you might have to go online and see where they are.
I'm chuckling because we have a friend who teaches third grade. It's a friend of Pam's all the way from back in high school. And she teaches third grade, lives relatively close to us. And I was trying to help her with Zoom when she first got thrown into this environment, right? Oh, you're going to be teaching from home. Oh, you're going to be teaching on Zoom. What's Zoom? She didn't have any idea. And I've been using Zoom for years. So I was trying to help her, and I just talked to her today, and she's on fire now. She's like the Zoom, wizard. She's got it all figured out. And she was so proud of herself. It was so awesome to see.
Yeah. And I think having patience for teachers and medical personnel, because they're doing the best they can in a situation that it was unexpected. I have a background in the schools with teaching and counseling. I don't even know what I would have done if you left work. Our teachers left work on Friday. They didn't even know it was going to be closed. the county closed those schools, and then now you're going to redesign. And I think people are being appreciative. They have a new perspective for educators, and that's good. And understand we're all need a little bit of time for breaks. So for whoever you are or whatever your field is, what are you doing to add that personal value to your life, to add things that bring joy and peace? Even if you have never meditated or done guided imagery or breathing, doing stretches and breathing and adding gratitude and affirmations. And that could be for little kids, younger, older. It's all great. I even taught, they were 80 to 90 years old once, a class about affirmations, and it was mess fun for that. So at any age, and with little kids, it can be, I'm happy when I can play with my dog, or I can have time reading a book by myself and no one else is there, and getting people to talk about it. I think it's important to move the energy through. In addition to all the sanitary safety, we want to make sure our emotional health is safety during this time.
Yeah. I feel like I'm like trying to get as much information out of you in a short period of time as I possibly can. So the last thing on kind of on my short list here, you talked about you have been on this medical journey for the last couple of years, and you were, driving up to Boston, and they turned around and sent you back. And, I've been blessed. I've been able to kind of stay away from that whole environment for quite a long time, knock on wood. But any thoughts or kind of advice or kind of insights that you have from kind of being close? You mentioned being patient and understanding, which I totally concur with. Amazing that these people working in hospitals and clinics and whatever, God, what they're doing is just incredible. And being grateful and patient. Anything else that you would add to that in terms of as we get closer and closer to either ourselves or loved ones, being in a medical environment or facility or whatever, effective handling of all that?
For someone going through a medical diagnosis, or for if somebody was with the virus?
Well, yes, I guess is my answer to that.
Both.
Yeah, because I think what's probably going to happen, and I think I shared this with you before we hit record, but I heard from a friend today whose mom's sister, who lives in Spain, actually had passed away. And I just thought, after that conversation I had with her, I thought, this is what's going to be happening. It's going to get closer and closer. And if we don't know someone who's been very sick or even passed away, we're almost certainly going to know someone who knows someone. So it's going to get that close, which is kind of the nature of my question. But also, if any of us find ourselves in that situation where we need to go to the hospital or we need to seek professional help, and again, any insights that you have to share about that?
Yeah, they're taking a lot of safety measures. If you go to an appointment, you might have to wear gloves or a bandana or a mask, and that's for your safety. And I would say for all of us to focus on a strengthened immune system. So I may have cells that someone has named cancer, and I keep them out there, like they're out there. And I affirm I'm vibrantly healthy. And with every breath, I have a strengthened immune system. And that's what I repeat all the time, wherever I am. And I do the same thing with the virus. My body is strong, it's whole, it's complete. It has the ability to be balanced. I drink more water. I'm intentional with my thoughts. I reframe everything that worked for me. And I honor. So for me, I have never been in a battle or a fight or a war. And sometimes people use those language for healing. I personally believe that isn't the best way to heal, but if it helps a person feel healthy, I guess that would be okay. But some of the things I've read, I think it's better to not be afraid of the virus or a loved one or somebody getting sick, but imagine light from your heart going to them wherever they are. So I have a son 3,000 miles away. My daughter's probably 1,500 miles away, and are they okay? And so anytime that comes to mind, I just imagine them being fully protected. I imagine they're safe. I imagine my elderly relatives are safe. And what happens is peace starts to come, and we start to flow from that. And it's not being in denial. It's actually creating an environment in our body to activate our body to remember it can be healthy and that we have the ability to heal. And if you have a loved one, like I would say, even before we, one of the things that somebody said to me once is, "Are you complete?" As an unfinished business. I'm like, well, I plan on staying around a long time. And if I wasn't, I feel I'm complete. I send gratitude cards. I make phone calls. I do emails. I would invite people to do that during this time. So even though you're not physically able to be with a person, you can send them a note and you could send them a message. This is what I really appreciate about you. And I timed it once. It takes only 2.5, 3 minutes to write a card for me anyway. So maybe some five or 10 minutes, because people said there's not time. Well, we have 24 hours. We're not commuting. We're not getting ready. Well, we might get ready for work, but we might also not. But so there's extra
Well,
time.
we only get ready for work from the waist up now. It doesn't matter, It doesn't matter
That's right.
if we're wearing pants or not. It doesn't matter.
That's So we can create that. So that's how I would spin it. I would create and imagine that our world could be surrounded by peace, that the virus fizzles out, that it dissolves and disintegrates, that the lessons we are here to learn, we're learning. And that's how I'm able to sleep deeply, because I will be honest, when I read some of the things or heard some of the things, I really had to pause and say, how is my immune system? How is it? Who have I been with? And, I had been out presenting and around a lot of people. So I'm good and I'm healthy. And anytime there's a little pain somewhere, I just stretch and move with that. So it's really important to add your thoughts into how your heart feels and to connect the two.
Awesome. All right. Well, I am so deeply grateful. I knew I was going to have to start a timer. I was joking again before we started, like with Teresa and I, if I don't start a timer, this will be a 2-hour podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us quickly, if people want to learn more about you or connect with you, learn more about the work that you're doing, what's the best way for people to do that?
So my website is teresadhuggins.com, and they can reach me there for further information. And if anyone has any needs, I'm happy to talk to someone on the phone or via email. If you wanted to send information and say, this is what's happening with myself or my young people or family, I'm happy to help in this time.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And anyone driving, don't write that down. I'll put it in the podcast description. So we don't want to make a difficult situation worse by having cars veering off the road trying to write down Teresa's email address. So thank you. You were literally one of the first people who came to mind when I was like, whose wisdom do I want to share? It was like you were right up there on the list. So deeply grateful that you were willing to do this. We had our little tech fun that we had to jump through those hoops to make this happen, but totally worthwhile. And again, just really grateful that you're willing to share your wisdom. It's a perfect example of what I had in mind for these couple of weeks. Because knowing people like you and spending so much time with people like you and collaborating with people like you really has made a profound difference for me in terms of just how I feel about everything that's going on and my ability to stay pretty present. I mean, my business is gone right now. I mean, and I could very easily freak out about that. And the truth is, I'm not freaking out about it. I'm working on it. I'm not ignoring it. But I see a lot of people are having a really hard time, and connecting to people like you, I know really helps. So again, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners again for joining us. We've got 2 more days of this wisdom series, and we'll be back to our regular routine of, it's probably going to be twice a week for a while, because I have so many amazing guests that I've been recording with during this period of time where I'm home and have lots of time for podcasting. So thank you for joining us. And again, just as a reminder, the purpose of the podcast, the purpose of the work is to help people make more excellent decisions. And I'm getting clearer and clearer every day. I don't think there's ever been a more important time to make excellent decisions based on the way we define it as making decisions based on our vision and our values and our value, rather than stress and pressure, which again has been ramped up big time. And the intention of making excellent decisions is still, to accomplish great things, to achieve, that's all great, but also to be truly happy And we use the ancient Greek definition of happiness, the experience of joy while in pursuit of our potential, which is still absolutely possible even in these crazy times. So thank you, Teresa. We'll talk to you again soon. And thank you to our listeners. We'll see you on the next episode of the Excellent Decisions podcast.